Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon and this is Shannon's Book Nook. And today we're going to be doing my January wrap up. Let's get into it. So before we get into the books that I actually read, let's talk about some stats real quick. So in the month of January, I read a total of 14 books, which is a great way to start the new year. I read two of those books as ebooks, three of them as audiobooks, and nine of them were mixed media, meaning I read them as either a audio with a physical or ebook. So I would go back and forth, or I would read them together as like a tandem read. So I did not have any DNFs for January, which is great news. Then I managed to read three arcs, which is awesome because I am working on getting caught up with my arcs. Then, as far as how many pages I read 4,188 pages, and I listened to 134 hours, 48 minutes, and 35 seconds of audiobooks. My average rating for the month of January is significantly higher than it has been in the last few months. And my average rating is 3.92. Pretty good. Pretty good. My most read genre, as always, is romance. And I read 8 books that had representation, whether it was LGBTQIA, BIPOC, had mental health rep, plus size girlies, any kind of representation, it counts. And so I read 8 books out of the 14 that had representation. And lastly, the last stat I'm keeping track of is how many of my 25 and 2025 books I read each month. And I read 4 in January, which is a great start. So now let's talk about the books that I actually read and break it down. So the first book that I read for the year of 2025 was Filthy Rich Vampire, book number 2, The Second Right. This follows Julian and Thea. Julian is a very rich, very old vampire, and Thea is a human. And I'm trying to refresh my memory. She's a very, very good cello player or violin player. She's in an orchestra. She's very good at her craft. And in the first book, when we meet these characters, they are at a like gala at a charity event, and she is playing in the orchestra, and he is kind of drawn to her. And yeah, so this is a continuation of their story. I can't go into too many details because this is the second book in the series, and I don't want to spoil anything. So I did give this 3 stars, which was lower than the first book, which I gave 4 stars. This one just didn't hold my attention as much as the first book. And the direction of the relationship, like some of the conflict, just seems to go away very quickly and very easily. So I was a little disappointed in this book, but I'm hoping book 3 will pull me in again to the story. So the next book I read was Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Leese. This is a Much Ado About Nothing kind of retelling the William Shakespeare play. We have Jamie and Bee, who have an instant dislike to each other. They are not really vibing, but their friends kind of play matchmaker. And so these two decide to fake date for a little bit. And the banter between Jamie and Bee is on point. They have really good chemistry. Jamie has some anxiety, and Bee is pansexual, and she really helps Jamie like kind of come out of his shell a little bit. This was such a cute read, such a delightful rom-com. I ended up giving it 4 stars and I had such a good time with it. Up next, I read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is set around New Year's, and we have a group of friends who decide to take a vacation in the Scottish Highlands, and they decide to celebrate New Year's together. Well, some creepy things start to happen, and somebody is killed. And this is a locked door mystery slash thriller. Um, the characters were not fully developed for me. I just honestly did not connect to any of them. So it was hard to care what was happening to this group of friends. I ended up giving this a 3 star. It is a slower paced mystery. The excitement or the craziness doesn't kind of come into play until a little bit later in the book. So it is a little bit slow, a little bit drawn out, and the characters are not fully developed, in my opinion. So I did give this a 3 star. It is not my favorite Lucy Foley book. I have read some of her other books, and this one is probably my least favorite. Up next, we have Not Here to Make Friends by Jodi McAllister. This was a book that was sent to me by the publisher because I am an Atria partner, and I had such a good time with this book. It is like the third or fourth book in a series of standalones. So I think I probably would have loved this even more if I had done my due diligence and read the books in order, because I think Murray and Lily, we see them in the other books in the series and their character progression, their character growth over the books that are before this one. But I still gave this 5 stars, which looking back, this is probably more of a 4 star. This is my only 5 star book for a book that is not a reread. So looking back, I probably should have given this a 4 star, but in the moment, I felt like it was a 5 star. This actually made me cry a little bit because Murray and Lily are producers on a show that is very much like The Bachelor, but this is set during the pandemic in Australia, I think, or New Zealand. No, it's in Australia. And they are producers on this show and they are friends. They are really good friends. But they they like each other, but they have had partners. So they have both been married, but tragedy strikes, especially for Lily, and she just decides to take a break from producing this show, and she ends up becoming a contestant on this show to kind of bring some drama to the show. And to see Murray and Lily kind of interacting the way they're interacting, and he just feels very betrayed by her because he doesn't understand why she's putting on this show, putting on this act for people when he knows this is not how she really is. She's come up with this like code print pen name, almost Lily Fireball, and he's like, this is not who you really are. Why are you acting like this? Like, I'm worried about you. And so their story is so heartfelt, and there were parts where I laughed, there were parts where I cried. So I had such a good time with this book. Not Here to Make Friends. I definitely want to read the other books in the series and get caught up. Up next, we have Beard in Mind by Penny Reed. This is a sequel in the Winston Brothers series. I've had such a good time with this series, but I have to be honest, Beard in Mind was kind of a letdown. I was so excited about reading about Bo Winston and Shelley Sullivan. Like they have this um banter. In the previous books, like that Bo just does not like this woman and you don't know why. And so I was excited to kind of see um the backstory of them. But this, I was so disappointed because honestly, it's almost like Bo didn't like Shelley simply because she was a woman working in a mechanic shop. And that was really disappointing to me. And Shelley is dealing with a lot of mental health issues. She has OCD and she is very, very anxious. And so I love seeing that rep. And she is currently seeing in the book, she is seeing a therapist who is helping her with a lot of the trauma that she's been holding on to, which is great. And Bo is very accepting of that trauma, and he accepts the fact that she's in therapy and getting this help. I was just there was a lack of chemistry and connection for me between these two characters. It almost felt like Bo was like, I hate you because you're a woman that works in this shop, but now I feel sorry for you because you have all these issues and I want to help you. And then they kind of fall in love. That was, I don't know, I felt like there was a lack of connection between these two characters, and that led me to giving this book a 3 star, and I was very disappointed. So on this next book, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's a pretty popular uh children's book, and I am participating on Instagram in a Harry Potter read along. And so this is a reread for me, and I decided to use my big illustrated edition. And I absolutely love this edition because of all the beautiful artwork and the pictures and just everything. And so I wanted to read. I bought these, but I have not actually read the books this edition. So I decided with this reread, I would use my beautifully illustrated editions. So this is a 5 star for me. This is one of my favorite series of all times. With that said, do I like the author? Absolutely not. Um, it kind of sucks, some of the things that are going on, and the things that this author is saying. I hate it, but this is still one of my favorite series of all time. So I still love it. Then I decided to read Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. This is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which was a 5 star read. It was one of my favorite reads back in like 2020. Absolutely loved it. This is a sequel. I honestly thought it was going to be a prequel, but it's not. It's a sequel, and we get to see some of our favorite characters again. And I had it was like coming home, seeing Arthur and Linus and Lucy, and we even have a new character who comes in, and all the kids at the orphanage. Oh my gosh, Theodore, I love all of them, and I had such a good time reading this book. Was it as good as The House in the Cerulean Sea? No, I ended up giving this one 4 stars, but I had a good time with it. And was this book really necessary? No, but you know what? I love these characters so much that I was okay with reading a book that just didn't need to exist, but it does, and I loved it. Then I read the chunkiest book on my January TBR, which was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. Now, this is a fantasy romance book, and she is a chunky one. I did end up annotating a little bit as I was reading. Um, the world building in this book is so good. Um, but I was kind of just along for the ride because honestly, for a chunk of this book, I was very confused. And Rave and Con are the main like people in this book, and I had a good time with it, but like I said, I felt like it was kind of just along for the ride because things didn't start to make sense until much later in the book. I do want to read the next book, and I plan on pre-ordering it pretty soon. But Rave and Con, I can't really even tell you what it's about because I was so confused a lot of the time. And what I can tell you is spoilery because it started to make sense. So if you're reading this book and you're confused, that's okay. So was I. Keep going. It'll make sense. That's all I can tell you. So then I read The Book Club Hotel by Sarah Morgan. This book was a sweet, emotional book. So we have three ladies who are part of a book club. Claudia, trying to remember the name, Erica, Claudia, and Anna. So they every year they get together as a book club. They go on a vacation. They read books. They talk about them. Sounds like a dream, in my opinion. But I think it's Claudia, if I remember correctly. She picks the location, and the girls are like, this is interesting. This isn't something that she would normally pick. It's a lovely hotel called the Maple Sugar Inn, and it is run by Hattie Coleman. And the girls are like, well, why did you pick this place? I wonder why. Well, we find out why. And all of the women in this book are going through something pretty life changing. So they really lean on each other. They really need each other's support and love. And the friendships in this book are just so amazing. The personal growth, the love, the forgiveness that has to happen in this book. It did bring me to tears a couple of times. So, highly recommend this book. It is set around Christmas and winter time, so I would highly recommend reading this around December. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars, and it's like a cozy, warm hug. Read it. Then I read Lola and the Millionaires Part 1 and Part 2 by Catherine Moon. This follows Lola, who is a beta. This is an Omegaverse Y Trues romance. So we have Lola, who is a beta. She has some trauma in her past. And did I say she's a beta? Yes. Okay. And meets Leo, who is also a beta, but he is bonded with a alpha. So he has a pack, she does not, and he ends up like introducing her to their Omega, who is Rake, and then all of the alphas, but she has some trauma with alphas, so she's very like standoffish and really kind of doesn't want anything to do with the alphas at first. She also works at a like fashion magazine, and she has a lot of ways of helping the magazine, and that magazine is also run by Cyrus and Matthew, who are in Leo's pack. They are two of the alphas that are in the pack. So she kind of becomes entangled with these millionaire pack guys. And so there are, like I said, there are 4 alphas. So we have Cyrus, Matthew, Caleb, and Wes. And she just kind of brings life into this pack, and yeah, falls into it. And this is their story, and it's so sweet. It's very spicy. It is an Omega verse, like I said. So if you're not into that kind of thing, this might not be a read for you. But if it's something that you might want to dip your toes into, I would definitely read Lola and the Millionaires Part 1, see how you like it. And then, if you like it, read the second part. Now, I did forget to tell you what I rated it. Part 1, I gave 4.25 stars, and part 2, I gave 3 stars. The second part did kind of let me down, and the pacing, there was some issues with the pacing, but overall, when you average out the two ratings, it comes out to like a 3.88. So basically a 4 star. Had a really good time with it. So let's talk about my next book. My next book was a book that was sent to me by Hambright PR. And because I am an influencer for Hambright PR on Instagram. Now, they sent me an e-copy of this book, and I loved it so much. And the author sent me a copy of the book, and with it signed and the sticker, Colby Morgan is my hero. That is the main character of this book. And then we have this stunning little art print. Love it. So this is about Colby Morgan, who is a firefighter. And then we also have Lydia, who is a physical therapist at a hospital. Okay. So Colby is injured on the job rescuing a child. And so this story, that's where this story starts. And Lydia, it becomes his physical therapist because he has been gravely injured. He is in a coma for a while. He's in the hospital for quite some time. And this just kind of follows their story. And Lydia, this book started it there's a lot of trigger warnings, and I don't want to spoil anything. But in the very beginning of the book, we learn that Lydia's husband, who is a police officer, is shot and killed in the line of duty. And they have 2 kids. And so Lydia has this trauma that comes from, her significant other being a first responder. And so working with Colby kind of just brings back that trauma. And very, very, very early on, like the first time that they meet, Colby is like, I'm going to marry that woman. And they're like, she's like, you're full of drugs. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about. But he constantly is telling her, like, I'm going to marry you. And they are so cute. This is such a sweet story. Oh my God. Loved it so much. Highly recommend. If I never said the title, it's Hero by Lauren Rowe. And you need to read it. You need to read this. I gave it 4.25 stars. I know the way I was talking about it makes it sound like it's a 5-star. Honestly, it probably should have been. Read this. Read it. I also listened to an audiobook called Get Out of Your Head by Jeannie Allen. This is a nonfiction self-help slash religious book. So it's just it was talking about like the different ways that the enemy tries to use our negative thoughts to keep us in this anxious spiral. So I have been dealing with like anxiety and depression for years, and I won't say that this like 100% helped me. It was very insightful, and it did help me to notice when I'm having those negative thoughts and like capture them real quick and try and figure out why I'm having those negative thoughts. So in that way, it's super helpful. But I do feel there's different things that I've been doing just besides like listening to this audiobook. But I feel like I am not as anxious, and knocking on wood, my depression, I feel like I've come out on the other side of it. So, not to say that the book is the reason, but it did definitely help me identify and notice when I'm having thoughts that are not really my own. They are coming from a place of fear and anger and it basically an attack from the enemy. And it has become apparent and clear now that I know how to grab those thoughts and deal with them appropriately. My last read of the month was another Atria book, and I read Under Your Spell by Laura Wood. Now, this focuses on Clementine Monroe, whose father was a rock star and kind of just left. And so she doesn't really like rock stars. But she has this one night stand with this guy, and come to find out, this guy is one of the most famous at the time rock stars. And she doesn't know she doesn't know him because she tries to stay away from like media, current events, all that stuff. And her sisters are like, we need you to basically babysit this rock star. Like, he needs good publicity and he can't seem to do that on his own. So we need you to babysit him. And since you don't care about rock stars, you actually hate them, we think you're the perfect person. His charm and charisma will do nothing for you. So please help us. And so she's like, fine, I'll babysit this rock star. And when she meets him, she's like, what the heck? Yeah. Sorry, sis. I've already slept with this one. So this whole story, it's quite funny. Um, but there are some things that happen that, we have family abandonment. I want to say her mother has also passed away recently. So there are some trigger warnings in this book, but overall, super sweet, super cute. And Theo James, I want to say is his name. Theo Elliott. Is the rock star in question. And this is just a super cute rom-com. Check it out. So there you have it. Those were the 14 books that I read. Here they all are, it was a physical copy. And I want to thank you for sticking around to watch this video. If you stuck around, don't forget to like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you want to leave me a comment letting me know that you were here, just leave me some book emojis. And I will see you next time. Bye.